And welcome to the 60s. Glad you all survived that trip. So, before I get to this next section, I want to thank all of you for the allowance that you are giving me to be a bit more informal here. Again, the things we're doing on Wednesday nights, wouldn't do in Sunday school class. They're not going to come out in a sermon. This is a unique thing that we're doing here. And this informal environment really best suits some of these urgent themes that we're talking about here. We are at the halfway point in the book of Revelation. We've gone through the first 11 chapters out of 22. We are in the lead up to the Bible study with Revelation 12. And we've paused that for this current event, what I would refer to as we're now in an after Bible study, looking at events that have happened since the Bible, because spiritual activity still is going on, as we've seen. So in this after Bible study, again, a Sunday afternoon, we're going to be viewing the Dragon's Prophecy film and having our discussion about that and connecting dots with that. All of this showing spiritual forces, bad and good, that are lining up to bring Revelation 12 to its completion. That's where this is all going. So with that in mind, aiming into the 60s, could the Cuban Missile Crisis that we ended with on the prior one, could the Cuban Missile Crisis, nuclear threat, that cliff edge, could that really have been incited by demonic forces, the whole Santeria thing that we were looking at there? How was our home state of California preparing? This next presentation is brought to you courtesy of Sister Leslie. Thank you for speaking up about Rowland Heights and missiles, because that may have been a surprise for some of us to hear that. But what I'm going to share next, again, thank you for our informal environment here for this evening. This will be, I found this to be charming and informing and entertaining all across the board. So let me minimize that, switch over to this one. Here is, well, let me do this first. Let's go here. Let's go to Rowland Heights. Here is Rowland Heights. Here's the LA-29L Nike missile site, just as Sister Leslie was talking about.
Which is one.
That's one.
That was one.
No, it's a one site that had multiple missiles.
Okay, but then, yeah,
It's one location, facility.
but I'm sure there's gotta be, or was, many more scattered through the west coast, or no?
There was a few that I've heard, yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
'Cause like I said, I was in a remote state of North Dakota, and they were,
Oh, with NORAD and all that stuff, yeah, there. So here is, sit back and be entertained and charmed and informed about how things were in California, specifically my neck of the woods, our neck of the woods, Southern California, during this time of the 50s into the 60s as the Cuban Missile Crisis was coming to its head.
that was in the 60s.
Yep.
Yeah.
You feel cold now?
The streets and neighborhoods of the former Rancho La Puente, more exact, Rowland Heights. I grew up there in the 1960s, and the hills south of my house was a Nike base. It wasn't spooky or mysterious. It wasn't even a secret. In fact, one of my sister's friends dated a soldier at the base. I went hiking in those hills, but stayed away from the base. It was a very different time in this country. And for those of you who remember, it was a time of national paranoia and fear, the Cold War. And for those of you who don't remember, in our little valley, this country's military apparatus was looking to protect it and the West Coast from both foreign and domestic threats, mostly foreign. The anxiety of a large Russian bomber strike was palpable. From the top of the Puente Hills, I can see both the city of Brea and the community of Rowland Heights. This ideal strategic defensive site was the home to a surface air missile base for some 13 years. I'm Marty Shields, and on this episode of Forgotten Tales, we'll take a look back at an era when atomic warhead cap missiles were in our neighborhoods. And we were thankful, duck and cover, But keep one eye open as we take a look back at this area's 19 missile bases here on Forgotten Tales. In other times of aggression throughout the previous wars, the former Rancho and its valley neighbors were home to military schools, encampments, installations, and airfields. During World War I, the city of Arcadia, more accurately Ross Airfield, was the site for a balloon training school. The school sat on land that had once been Lucky Baldwin's horse stables, and now provided 2 large hangars, a training school, and a bachelor army barracks, all courtesy of Anita Baldwin, daughter of the once Rancho owner. During World War II, Missouri pack mules and their owners were brought to a school in La Puente. The goal was to train the soldiers at the mule school on the care and handling of these valuable army assets. Known for their ability to carry large amounts of pack weight, these mules' stamina on long drives was legendary. The animals were housed in a warehouse and cattle yard at the corner of Valley and Main Street throughout World War II, on land also owned by Anita Baldwin. Elsewhere in North Whittier Heights, a small company of soldiers set up camp around a satellite dish for 3 years, from 1944 to 1947. Their barracks were in an open field near Valencia and Walnut Avenues. After a while, they became part of the day-to-day life in the Heights, except for the concerns of mothers of teenage daughters.
The mothers, like mine and my friends' mothers, were a little cautious about letting us walk up there at night. Although nothing ever occurred, it was just that, there were a bunch of young men that were barracked up there, and probably it would be better if we'd be home before dark. In fact, they had quite a few young men that were there, and they married some local girls. I mean, they were there long enough to create a romance and marriage.
More than 10 years, no place was safe in the valley against the Red Army of Communist Russia. Throughout the valley, school children learned how to duck and cover at a moment's notice. Fear gripped America.
Duck and cover!
What made the valley a prime area for a bomber attack was the importance of Southern California's business industries, aerospace, communications, transportation, and still existing military installations from the war. Ever since the Cold War began, the armed forces of America pushed to fortify this country any way it could. In 1945, Congress initiated a program to build surface-to-air missile bases in key locations from the east to west coasts. Beginning in the early 1950s, 90 missile bases were being built in the LA Basin that were intended to keep California protected from attack. By 1958, 200 bases were built across the country. That's a lot.
A Kaiser Permanente Medicare and Medi-Cal health plan brings your care and coverage together in one place. Your doctors, pharmacy, and your health plan all centered around you. Because when everything comes together, you get the care you need.
Celebrate the best deals during the Black Friday event at the Living Spaces Sleep Center. Save on a variety of mattresses and adjustable base set.
Locally, 16 sites were constructed in out-of-the-way areas, miles away from homes and roads, into what was called the Ring of Supersonic Steel. Newhall to the north, Malibu to the west, San Pedro to the south, Stanton to the east. Of the 16 Nike missile bases in the basin, 2 were in the former Ranchos area. The first base built was designated LA Base number 14, built in South El Monte in 1953. The second missile base in the valley was established in 1958 at the top of the Pointy Hills, north of the city of Brea, LA Base number 29. Each base consisted of 2 separate locations, the radar and control communication site and the launch battery site, 3 underground missile silos, administration building, a radar and tracking building, mess hall, barracks, and a small motor pool. Within the site, the 2 locations were a quarter-mile apart. In case of a bomber strike taking out a launch pad, the radar control site was still able to launch remaining missiles and have contact with other bases. As you can imagine, some of the assignments could be boring, tedious. But for a special few soldiers stationed at the Los Angeles and Hollywood bases, they had a more interesting and exciting tour of duty. Occasionally, Hollywood entertainers were allowed on base and even into the silos. An open door policy allowed beauty contests to be held at the Battery. And they even crowned a woman Miss Atomic Bomb. Not all excitement came from bombshells and bikinis. A particular bombshell attracted a lot of attention and fear in 1960, when on June 7th, a fuel tank ruptured on a Nike missile at Fort Dixon Air Force Base in New Jersey. The missile melted down, exposing its deadly plutonium core. Soldiers on duty unknowingly used a fire hose to put out the fire, but by doing so, spread the plutonium everywhere, eventually contaminating the groundwater in and around the accident site. Until this day, the area is cemented in and radiates plutonium contaminant. In 1961, the El Monte base was decommissioned. Had the Cold War warmed up? No. The warhead on the top of the Nike missile had been upgraded from Ajax to the longer range and more powerful Hercules warhead. With the change, fewer sites were needed for protection. Accidents like the one in New Jersey, surprisingly but logically, weren't the most concerning for soldiers. It was fire. Well, forest fires that had the bases around the country and in California on guard. The sites in and around Los Angeles had been purposely built far away from urban sprawl. But that also meant far away from potential help for fires that perpetually flared up in the Angeles National Forest.
Remember, only you can prevent forest fires.
A 1959 fire near the Mount Gleason base near Soledad Canyon came uncomfortably close to base number 4. But the fire at base number 94 Los Pinitos near Silmar in 1966 was deadly. First noticed by a soldier in the early morning of November 1st near the radar control area, it had already scorched trees and set fire to telephone poles, cutting communication to the base. For 7 days, the base was engaged in a 24-hour around-the-clock vigil to protect the Nike control radar pedestals from the flames. The inferno consumed 2,000 acres of the forest and killed 12. With housing tracts expanding closer to the sites, concerns began to grow in this country about atomic energy and power, possibly cutting back, slowing down, beginning to limit strategic arm buildups, and hopefully preventing an unintentional horrific disaster by our own military here in America. first strategic arms limitation talks with the Soviet Union began in 1969. Both countries began to map out a treaty that would lead to the first arms agreement package.
As you know, the Soviet-American talks on limiting nuclear arms have been deadlocked for over a year. As a result of negotiations involving the highest level of both governments, I am announcing today a significant development in breaking the deadlock.
June 1971. The last 19 missile base in the former Rancho that had stood some 13 years was no more. LA base number 29 was decommissioned by the Army. 2 years later, a City of Fullerton Congressman Charles Chuck Wiggins helped acquire the 32-acre Pointy Hill site above Brea. A large city wilderness-style park was planned at the site, along with a themed restaurant, accessible by tram from the Brea side of the hills. In 1978, Brea had the Navy Seabees demolish most of the remaining structures at LA base number 29, along with filling in 3 silos. The buildings that once sat on the site were given up to the elements and forgotten. Currently, the site still remains undeveloped. In El Monte, acres of the old site were used up until recently as a large landfill. This guard shack is one of the last above-ground structures here at LA base number 29 in the Pointy Hills. Like the site in El Monte, it's supposed to become a large park, and when done, you'll be able to see both the San Gabriel Valley and downtown Los Angeles. But with any plan, the potential park, like the El Monte site, may never be built or honored. Only time will tell if this site becomes what it needs to be, should be, an area where our concerned military once made safe and protected this country's way of life, and hopefully become a park that will protect and make safe the hopes and dreams of a better life for generations to come. Well, it's time to mosey on down the road, but we want to make sure we invite you to join us here on another episode of Forgotten Tales. Peace. Adios. Come on.
Yes, Brother Clay.
You know, when I was in North Dakota, and you know, it was found out about all these missile silos and underground and river level. You know, why would they, you know, put them out here? You know, and same thought occurred. Of course, it wasn't as populated back then as it is now, where you could just close your eyes and throw a rock and hit somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as protecting, that would be a place that they would go after. Because their intelligence, the other countries, their intelligence, they kind of know where the missiles are.
But the point was these being able to knock them down, like we saw the missile shoot up and take out the plane. That would be the point, that before anything could come in, they. There you go.
Well, it's close to the
Same concept, yeah.
Because you can see when you get to the top of the hill there in La Habra, you can see the ocean on clear days.
Well, yeah, but that's my point. They've actually had submarines come in San Diego back to the water. I mean,
Yep.
Right up there, you know, and but if you've got you can go after civilian population.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you really want to knock out their power, their infrastructure more than anything.
Yep. So here on top of the hill, that's where the missiles used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And right over here is where he was just at in that little guard shack. Right there, where he wrapped up his filming there. And here's where Leslie lived.
But now there's one before I moved down. So they have to build a lot of new homes on top of that hill.
Yeah.
And they did build a park, but it wasn't on top of the hill, it was a little bit farther down.
So yeah, the launcher area is now a flat dirt area to the right of the concrete pads. The magazines, of course, completely removed.
gets me about how, okay, they, all the time and effort to build them in the first place and bury them and everything, and nobody's, you never see it happen. And then go in there and take it all down and haul it away.
Yeah.
Nobody sees it.
Yeah.
It's like the windmills in Tehachapi.
Oh, yeah.
All of a sudden, they're there, and you know, how did they got like one truck per each just blade.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, those are huge.
And, you know, where did they, all of a sudden there's a field up there.
So, yeah. So this was the reason why we're taking the time to go slow and marinate in this time frame right here is because this was something that was not that long ago, and it was really affecting people's lives. This was part of their day-to-day. The Orange County parks that used to be missile silos, there's Chapman Sports Park right there. Just share this paragraph here. During the Cold War, to protect military bases and transportation networks, as well as the manufacturing sites for ships, airplanes, and electronics, the military constructed what they called a ring of supersonic steel around greater Los Angeles. This protective ring had a far-reaching radius that included surrounding counties, including Orange County. It made the region one of the most heavily guarded metropolitan areas in the U.S. Chapman Sports Park was part of that defensive ring from 1958 till 1971, known as Los Angeles Defense Area Site LA-32, manned 24 hours a day by 100 military personnel. Another Nike nuclear missile site is now the Orange County Fairgrounds. And another, Sister Leslie's LA-29, is at the end of Vantage Point Drive in Rowland Heights with dramatic views overlooking much of Orange County. So if we go to the Orange County Fairgrounds, so here's the Orange County Fairgrounds near Costa Mesa, Irvine. There's the John Wayne Airport right there, right next to it. So just some miles south of Sister Leslie up there in Rowland Heights, there's the Orange County Fairgrounds that now stands on top of what used to be the missile silo during the Cold War there.
It's like a stadium or something down there to the left of the arrow.
Right there, yeah.
Well, that's a football field. We go down right there. It looks like a ball field or something.
Yeah.
What is that?
Amphitheater, maybe?
Yeah, well, that's an
Amphitheater.
amphitheater, huh?
Yeah. Irvine Meadows?
It could be, yeah.
See what it says.
We saw
Right next to
BTO back then.
It's right there at the fairgrounds, whatever that is there. Yeah, so again, talking about the spiritual impact of these things, while keep in mind, demonic forces, they're not just anti-Semitic or anti-Christian, they're anti-life. It's like Batman and the Joker, especially Heath Ledger's Joker in the movie, his job is to just throw random chaos and upset the apple cart of anyone who's trying to have peace and security and stability and consistency. And so that's what these demonic forces are trying to do. They're trying to threaten life. They don't care if the Cuban Missile Crisis ends up being a nuclear war that takes out folks on both sides. They don't care if they lose any of their own. They have no regard for those of their own, so to speak. They just want, are anarchists, want destruction. So that's what was the concern in that phase of the Cold War in the 60s. So anything else on that slice of life there?
It's crazy how close it is to home.
Crazy how close it is to home. That's the point. Thank you, Sister Leslie. Absolutely. So let's close in Scripture. Let's go back to Genesis, but let's go to chapter 2. Start on Scripture, end on Scripture. They're starting the first half in 2 Kings 6. Let's close this evening and this second recording here in Genesis chapter 2. Let's look at the first 3 verses. Genesis 2, verses 1 through 3. Here we go. Genesis 2, verse 1. And so the heavens and the earth were completed, and all their heavenly lights. By the 7th day, God completed his work which he had done, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had done. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because on it he rested from all his work which God had created and made. So thoughts from the Book of Mysteries on that passage. Let's see, 124 here. Here's some thoughts on Genesis 2, 1 through 3. Keep in mind connecting Creation Week to Messiah and Jesus Christ and his incarnation coming. So Messiah finished his labors on the sixth day as well, Friday. And after God finished his labors, the Sabbath came. What happened after Messiah finished his labor over the new creation? After he said it is finished, Friday, then came Saturday, the Sabbath. That's why they rushed to take down his body and place it in the tomb, because the sun was setting and the seventh day was coming. And as in the beginning, it's now time to rest. On the seventh day of creation, God rested. So now in the new creation, the seventh day came and God rested in the tomb. Jesus in the tomb on the Sabbath. He had to finish his labors because the Sabbath was coming, one way of looking at it. Another way, he finished his labor so that the Sabbath could come. The sign that his work was done, that his labors over the new creation were finished. You can't have rest until the work is done. So the rest coming shows that his work's done. So the seventh day has come, a new rest, a new peace, a new blessing, a new completion for all who enter into the new creation, a new seventh day, the Sabbath of the Messiah. So hand in hand with that, closing thought here. So on the seventh day, God ceased. Behind the word rested in Hebrew is the word Shabbat. It's where we get Sabbath and where we get Saturday, Sabbath. So on the seventh day, God ceased. So for God to bring in a new Sabbath, he would have to cease. The timing of that ceasing would have to be linked to the timing of the Sabbath. It was Friday afternoon, the end of the sixth day, not of creation, but now of redemption. Holy Week that we're seeing in Chosen Season 5. It was, as in the beginning, the sixth day, Friday, was the day of the completion of God's labors. Father of all Trinity and creation, Jesus in his Holy Week. So the labors of God were completed on the cross. And then on the cross, he ceased. He ceased from his labors and his life. The Shabbat, the second ceasing of God. As in the beginning, God ceased, and then came the Sabbath, a new Sabbath, and the new peace, greater than the world, for all who will enter it. How do you enter it? Same way, by ceasing, in the ceasing of God. So we find our rest in Christ, who ended his labors, his life ceased, and then we have the new beginning after the rest. So very much the work of Christ was, even creation was anticipating and looking ahead to Christ, and the work of Christ was looking back to what was intended from creation at the beginning. So any thoughts on those thoughts on Genesis 2 and completion of creation and the work of Christ for us? All good? All right, let's close up shop here. We'll stop our screen share. We'll stop our recording, and let's get ready to meet in the center, close out in our Thanksgiving Eve season of prayer together.